I don't think they understand that for Pakistan to stabilize and to grow in a robust manner, good relations with India is a prerequisite.
Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I am Surya Gangadharan. Today I have with me Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed. He is a political scientist. He is also an acclaimed writer of historical books. He's written a book on Jinnah which came out some years ago. Jinnah, as you're aware, is the founder of Pakistan. And the book has been widely acclaimed and commented upon. Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed, glad to have you in our studio.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Sir, my focus is more current.
Yeah.
It's about Pakistan since the elections and what is your sense of how things have gone over there? We have a government in power. It appears stable for now, but a lot of undercurrents also we keep reading about. What can you tell us about the situation there now?
Well, I think the establishment has thus far always been able finally to succeed in having its own will prevail. And it seems that this time too they have been successful. Although there is a large mass support for Imran Khan, that cannot be denied. But I don't think they are in a position to launch a nationwide movement to challenge the establishment. And the current government, they need, firstly because of the budget which has to be approved. And then people say that sometimes from May to July would determine whether this government would last longer or not. The problems of Pakistan are that whichever government is in power, it has to face the harsh reality of a huge debt under which Pakistan is crushed, and we don't have an industrial sector which is functioning well. The agrarian sector is stagnant. There are no jobs. The bazaars are empty, the shops are in a poor condition. So there is a sense of despair, despondency. So that's the unfortunate situation in Pakistan. But for the moment it seems that we do have governments now in all the 4 provinces and in the center. And from the appearance, things have started happening as they do according to standard procedures.
Now, the army as the power behind the throne, one presumes that it has a good understanding of the situation on the ground in terms of the economy and so on. Do you believe that the current setup that they have been able to put in place is part of that longer plan to stabilize the economy? Where do you see this? Do you see the outlines of an economic plan that they have?
Justice General Asim Munir has been talking to economists and said that he has some fantastic ideas. And in his first speech as Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif said that by 2030, he was hoping that Pakistan would be a member of the G20. Now that I think is a lot of, rhetoric. I don't think either of them has concrete ideas of how to get out of the mess which has accumulated over the years. You see, you can't manage an economy if you sort of subordinate everything to a perceived threat to Pakistan's existence from primarily India, but then many other places in the world. So spending money in the arms race has been devastating for Pakistan, something comparable to how the Soviet Union ultimately went bankrupt because of the arms race. And I think at the moment, I don't think whatever ideas they have, they are very cogent and they are very concrete.
But do you envisage a collapse of the kind that the USSR went through?
Interestingly enough, the collapse was in the USSR was a decision of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, whereas the republics, they didn't want to get out of the Soviet Union. But Pakistan's situation is very different. I think there is an Baloch separatist movement which wants to secede from Pakistan. There is an emerging threat from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the tribal areas where there is a desire to break out of Pakistan. What is left then is Sindh, and Sindh always has a grievance against Pakistan. It's only the Punjab which I would say is the support base of the Pakistani state. And I would even say that the Pakistan army at the present moment, if there is no intervention of a great power, I think it has the capacity and capability of keeping at bay the Baloch as well as the people in the frontier. This low-scale insurgency may continue for a long time. But I don't think the Pakistan army can be defeated by these separatist movements on their own. But Pakistan can continue like this. How long, that I don't know, because ultimately if the treasury is all bankrupt and nobody is bailing you out, the Americans used to and the Saudis used to do that. Now probably the Chinese have a stake in maintaining Pakistan. So Pakistan must make radical changes in its orientation in the region, especially I'm saying not India so much, but Pakistan needs to normalize relations with India, start some sort of trade, let's say let books come along and medicines, I remember way back in 2004 when Imran Khan was just a rising politician. He was in Karachi trying to build another cancer hospital. And I think Amir Khan, this Bollywood actor, was there. So I remember Imran Khan saying that, there is a cancer pill, which if we buy from the West as we do, it costs 161 rupees. But if we buy from India, it's only 52 rupees. So you can see the great advantage Pakistani people would derive in a normalization with relations with India. And that's what I'm arguing all the time. And I hope Pakistani policy makers, power wielders, they start listening to me. I'm not the only one, of course. There are other very sane voices being raised in Pakistan. But this whole notion of first settling the Kashmir dispute, and that also the way Pakistan wants it, that will not provide a breakthrough. We'll have to do something unusual to start making a change in Pakistan's relations with India. And then I think one can work on that goodwill to normalize relations even with the Afghan government. And China, of course, we have some sort of equation which is stable.
I'm trying to understand how the Pak army thinks, 50 years ago, quite some years ago, the Bangladesh army, which is a Pakistani clone, it decided to step back from the business of politics. The same has not happened to the Pakistan army, although their ethos and background is the same. What is it about the Pakistani generals that makes them different?
Well, remember, historically, the invasions to the subcontinent never came from the northeast. So those Bengalis who joined the army were a very small group to begin with. Secondly, I think in Bangladesh, they realized that good relations with India is good for Bangladesh. And if they want to really develop, and I think some of those generals who were involved in the assassination of Mujibur Rahman were even hanged. So that group was smashed. And the new Bangladesh army is the way armies should be. They should be there to defend the national borders, but leave the politicians to manage the internal affairs. Pakistan from day one never had this opportunity. Mr. Jinnah, before Pakistan came into being, was marketing Pakistan to the West, that we would join the anti-communist, anti-Russian, anti-Soviet containment policy if you co-opt us. And that's what remains Pakistan's problem, that during that period the amount of economic military aid which came only strengthened one institution in Pakistan, whereas the politicians were from after Jinnah, let's say that he was the founder of Pakistan, although some of his decisions I think were disastrous for democracy, but his stature, his people held him in respect and so on. Once he was gone, things started going awry and they never could stabilize. So we have never had a leader like Jawaharlal Nehru or a home minister like Sardar Patel during the formative phase. It's when the state is being formed that you need people with a vision and a commitment. We had this tragedy of not having any such people around. And over time, that has only worsened.
We'll take a short ad break here, back in a bit. Welcome back. I'm talking to Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed on Pakistan and of course India. Professor, you mentioned the entire political setup in Pakistan now after elections and all. Do you believe the army has the intellectual depth? Are there people in the army even today who know, who understand these issues? Do you see a situation where within the army itself there is a debate on what their role should be going forward?
Well, you know, I've written a book, Pakistan, the Garrison State, and to my very great pleasant surprise, when I talked to all the retired generals, of which 4 were heads of the ISI, 3 were chief of army staffs, they've talked a lot of sense. And this, but they all feel that they have this, without them, Pakistan wouldn't do because the politicians are rotten. This is a common faith they all share. Yeah. And I think this is even taught to them. And they are not far from the truth in many cases, not in all cases. So that's been a tragedy. But I don't think they understand that for Pakistan to stabilize and to grow in a robust manner, good relations with India is a prerequisite. As soon as they grasp this, I've said nobody in India wants Pakistan to come back and be part of Akhand Bharat and all. That's just politics. People realize that these are 2 states, but India wouldn't want a state which is always exporting terrorism and so on. So if you just do away with this sort of politics and both can live in peace and be good neighbors, you could always have your paramount role as the defender of Pakistan. Nobody questions that. Yeah. And if there is any aggressive power trying to destabilize Pakistan, you have even nuclear weapons at your disposal. So what's the big deal? Just be a normal state under international law. Interference in the affairs of other countries is illegal, it's unlawful. And sending Mujahideen and this Ghazwa-e-Hind nonsense and all this has to be abandoned, not tactically, but intellectually. As soon as the generals understand this, I don't think Pakistan has a big issue because it's a resilient society nevertheless. Yes.
But does this idea have takers among the broad public?
Among the broad public, once again, I was there for 9 weeks, addressed 27 public audiences, universities, think tanks, and so on. And everywhere my ideas were received in a very sympathetic manner. Nobody was outright challenging me. There were some rude remarks here and there, but that's obviously bound to happen. And the dreaded ISI did nothing to obstruct me. I went everywhere, even to the Civil Service Academy, where all the bureaucrats are trained. And believe you me, in the end, I made them clap when I told them that Mahatma Gandhi, these are the services just for the Muslims during those critical period when partition was taking place. They had not been told about all those things. So if I can manage that, somewhere there is a basic wisdom of the people which understands that truth is truth, and ideology and so on ultimately are no match when the truth is brought forward. And I'm hoping that this very simple idea gets accepted even by our generals. And I want Pakistan to be like India, growing, I say India, not with envy, but with a lot of admiration. In the 10, 20 years I've been here many times, India is definitely going to be it is a great power already. It will have more weight in international affairs. And the reason is whatever government was there, even the UPA and so on, they introduced policies on the basis of which now the current government has achieved all these grand results. So in India, whatever leadership you have, the national interest is never compromised. And I think that's important. In Pakistan, the governments are like the mansabdari system of the emperor, not knowing if they remain in power tomorrow. So as long as you are there, use public office to amass private wealth as much as you can. So that's the difference. We still have the mansabdari system with the emperor being the people that we know about. So the emperor is there, the governments are there, but the governments don't have that what should I say, that authoritative position. They are just considered a formal necessity. Real power is still with the establishment. And the establishment has to make drastic changes. It should let the economy grow. And, the Pakistan Army has been developing housing schemes, and that's where they have made a lot of profit. But now I hear there are big complaints about how bad those buildings are, and all those things are now coming out in the public.
Shahbaz Sharif, Imran Khan, Nawaz Sharif, what is your assessment of how things are going to play out for them?
I think there's some people keep telling me that negotiations are going on with Imran Khan. And if they can reach an understanding, maybe a way to bring him back would be made possible. But most of my friends would say that Imran Khan, no chance. And they would try to ensure that Shahbaz Sharif continues. I would have preferred Mia Nawaz Sharif, who is more outspoken about good relations with India. Shahbaz Sharif is more of a politician who can fit into all situations. So that's the way I think about it. For a while, I think the establishment were trying to promote Bilawal Bhutto. But he's a Sindhi, and without a Punjabi being part of that team, it's not possible. So the future would be, in a year's time, I would have a better thing to, because if they survive a year, then they can survive another year and so on. But so this, some people say July would be the turning point if they continue or not.
So last question, India, where does it figure, does it not figure? Where do you see this entire India-Pakistan thing shaping up?
Well, one is my dream that they become good neighbors. But at the moment, it seems that this is just a pious desire, because the public statements are not of a way that they encourage such an understanding. We have Shahbaz Sharif making in his maiden speech as Prime Minister, he spent a lot of time about let's join hands, all of us, and do jihad and liberate Kashmir and so on, which I think is a waste of time. It's demagogy at its worst, because you could have said Pakistan's commitment to the Kashmiri people remains steadfast, but we want to promote Pakistan's overall interest, and we look for opportunities to find. Then he goes on and makes another hyperbole that by 2030 we will be part of the G20. How's that? You know, if you make such statements, I've said this is in Punjabi thada politics. Thada is where you sit on and make tall claims. He didn't have done it. But then my friends say he has no choice. He's been told to say all this. So from that side. From India, they are saying that we cannot forget and forgive some of the things which have happened. So where is the hope? The hope is that all this is politics, but at the bottom of it, both realize that security-wise, trade-wise, and so on, good relations between India and Pakistan are a better guarantee of a bright future than if there is a disturbance all the time.
On that note, Professor Ishtiaq, thank you very much for sitting down with us for this interview. A lot of perspective there, what you've told us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Surya ji.
That's all we have for you on this edition of The Gist. Do tune in for more informative dialogues and interviews. Thank you very much. Good day.